Good evening, Meadowbrook family. Welcome to our second Meadowbrook Middle School reopening update. So glad that you can join us tonight. We have more information than what we had from our prior get-together. And so before we begin, I want to let you know that we have a QR code at the top right-hand corner, and you can use that in order to go to the document to put in questions that you might have. Also, we will run a ticker at the bottom so that you can ask us questions. After we go through the presentation, we will go through question and answer. And with that, we'll go ahead and begin. So this is our latest current situation. Our enrollment is approximately 1,230 this year. From the December 2020 family survey, approximately 63% of our families have chosen in-person learning. 37% have chosen virtual learning academy or virtual. Our challenge still is that we can't accommodate large numbers of students on campus and maintain current required physical distancing standards. So our solution to that is to split students into two groups or cohorts. Each cohort attends 2 days a week. And we will go through and look at what that will look like. We will be implementing the concurrent A/B learning model. So the teacher is physically in the classroom teaching and supporting students both virtually and in person at the same time. So in essence, what they're doing is teaching one lesson to two environments, both virtual and in person. And you can see the picture, there's the teacher at the front teaching the students, also while engaging with students virtually at the same time. In the concurrent A/B learning model, all instruction is virtual via Canvas. Students that choose to return to campus will have an opportunity to return to the brick and mortar classroom, so to come back to campus environment 2 days per week. Some students will be on campus in small groups, and others will be accessing their learning virtually at home. All students are either on campus or participating in the virtual learning academy. So education will take place at the same time, so we call it the concurrent model. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. If I am in group A, I will go to school on Monday and Tuesday for in-person learning. So it's the yellow here. On Monday, I will attend periods 1, 3, 7, and 8 if I'm in the academy. And then on Tuesday, I will attend even classes, which is 2, 4, 5, and 6. Meanwhile, Group B will be virtual and will be accessing the teacher and their learning virtually. So then what will happen is on Wednesday, if I'm in Group A, I will now access my learning virtually on Wednesday and Thursday. We will go to odd periods 1, 3, 7, and 8 if I'm in the academy from home, as well as on Thursday, I will access my learning virtually at home. So what we do is we split those who want to be on campus, the 63%, and we cut it in half. And we do that so that we can meet physical distancing requirements. On Friday, we will have all groups will be in a self-sustained or independent learning model. So Group A and B and our virtual learning students will all access their learning virtually. So if I am a VLA student, I will access my learning virtually Monday through Thursday and have a self-learning or self-paced learning on Friday. And so that's what it looks like. So just to go back over, all instruction is virtual via Canvas. So as the teacher is teaching in person, I will bring my Chromebook with me that is issued, and we'll go over that, but issued PUSD Chromebook. I will use my Chromebook. If I'm in Group A, I will access my learning also with the teacher in front of me or someone who is monitoring me. And then that will happen 2 days per week. So either Monday, Tuesday, if I'm in Group A, or Wednesday, Thursday, if I'm in Group B. Some students will be on campus in small groups, and others will be learning virtually at home. And again, all students are either on campus or learning virtually. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what this could look like with a bell schedule. And I know this is a lot to look at, and so we're going to go through it slowly. And this is a sample concurrent A/B learning model that we might implement. If we change it, what would change would be the start time. So right now, we start school at 8:20 with advisory, and our tutorial or office hours are tacked on to the end of each period. Well, because we're going to have on-campus students, what we've done is we've shifted that to happen before school or either after school. Students will be able to access the tutorial or office hours. So if we do need to shift it because of transportation, so right now we usually start at 7:40. I'm sorry, not right now. Pre-COVID, we would start at 7:40 a.m. And so our transportation schedule, we're trying to figure out if there's a way for us to be able to shift that and begin later in the day. So that's what might change. So again, this is a sample, but let's go ahead and take a look at it. So in the red here, we have our Group A. And so on Monday, I'm in Group A. I'm a student that's in Group A. I would come to school at 8 o'clock to 8:20. I would have 20 minutes where I can access extra learning or get extra help on campus. If I'm at home, I can still access that. I would just do it virtually. So this is where I would have my tutorial, would be from 8 to 8:20. I'd have a passing period and then have advisory. And that's what we have right now. We would have a 20-minute advisory where I'm getting my social emotional learning and support. And then I would go to periods 1, 3, have lunch. So there's a break in there. I'm sorry. I would have a passing period. I would go to period 1, take a break for 20 minutes. And then I would go to my period 3, go to lunch, and we'll talk about what lunch will look like. Then go 5-minute passing period, get back in my classroom for period 7, and then my day would be over unless I'm in academy, in which case I would go to school from 2:05 to 3:25. So our start time for office hours would begin at 8 o'clock. Our advisory would begin at 8:25, and our end time for school would be 1:55. This is one sample of what we might do. Then the next day, let's say I'm still Group A, I would go to tutorial again if I need to. I can do it in the AM, or now I can also do it in the PM. So there's 20 minutes after school as well. So we can access learning then. I would then go to advisory. I would go to period 2. I would go to either period 4 or 5, have lunch, go to period 6. That would be my Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday it's time for group B to be on campus, I will still access my learning virtually. So I can still go to office hours in the AM virtually. I would go to my advisory, and then I would do my odd, my period 1, my break, period 3, lunch, passing period. Period 7, if I'm in period 8, I would access my class, my period 8 class virtually. And then my school day would be over, and then I would go through it again the next day virtually with the tutorial and office hours. And then through my school day for even. So I would go to advisory, go to period 2, period 4 or 5, lunch, passing period, go to period 6, and then if I need extra support still, I can access tutorial hours twice that day, once that day in the AM, once that day in the PM, or if I'm okay and I don't need that extra support, I don't need to access it. Let's go ahead and look at Friday, and then Friday will be all groups again will be self-sustained learning. Teachers will have time to prepare lessons as well as give them lessons, and so that would be a self-sustained learning day, independent learning day, and more information about that and what it will look like is to come. So this is a sample of what it could look like for a day in the life of a Meadowbrook student for the concurrent AB learning model. Classroom, campus, and preparations. This is just a good picture of what it looks like. Actually, currently, this is actually one of our classrooms that's on campus right now. You can see we have the desk shields up, and we distance 6 feet apart. You can see that from where the chairs are. And so all classrooms or other learning spaces that will be occupied by students will be designed according to health and safety guidelines as outlined by the PUSD Reopening Guidebook 2.0. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at that guidebook, I highly suggest you look at it if you're thinking of sending or if you're sending your student back onto campus. It has lots of rich information in it. These are some of our reopening preparations. Last time we met, we talked about what we would need to have happen. So now let's talk about some of the things that have happened since we last were able to meet. All of our PPE equipment has been organized and provided to staff and delivered by the district office. Desk shields that you had seen in some of the pictures, they have all been distributed to classrooms. Excuse me. Cleaning equipment and products have been received. Professional development time and support will continue, has begun and will continue to be provided to teachers to learn equipment and set up the classroom as we prepare for the reopening. We have our innovation and technology. They will be working with our teachers January 8th, and so we're getting there's already teachers practicing it, but that extra support is there for them. Additional technology for teachers has been provided to run their simultaneous classrooms, or concurrent classrooms. This includes laptops, webcams, etc., things of those natures. Also, Chromebooks are available for students when they return to school. Also, of course, students that may need Chromebook while they're learning at home virtually. It will be needed for them to have Chromebooks when they're on campus to access their learning, so we will make sure that that is all distributed to them. Also, again, not to exclude our virtual learning environment, Chromebooks are available for them as well. We've been partnering with San Diego County Office of Education, and they're providing guidance for PE and performing arts courses, and the district has work groups that have been formed, and we're trying to think out of the box and what will it look like in order to ensure safe learning for PE and performing arts such as band and chorus, orchestra. I'm not going to open this, but just so everybody knows, parent and guardians will be asked to sign a health and safety agreement for on-campus learning. We'll make this PowerPoint available. It'll go on the call out on Sunday. So you can click on this link here, and if you want to take a look at what that agreement looks like, you'll be able to do so. Also, again, I strongly encourage and recommend that all parents and guardians review the PUSD Reopening Guidebook 2.0. This has kind of been my handbook through our journey so far, and it's proved very helpful. Physical distancing. This is one of our main things that we're trying to incorporate as much as feasibly possible is the 6 foot distancing. So students' workspaces will be arranged with consideration for maximum physical distancing following public health recommendations. We also have the desktop partitions to help and create another barrier for students. Teacher and other staff desks will also be distanced at least 6 feet away from student desks. Group activities will be significantly limited, whether they happen or not. Also, visual reminders will be provided throughout the campus for distancing for our students. Again, for technology, all students will be assigned a PUSD Chromebook. Thank you to our foundation, Meadowbrook Education Foundation, for providing Chromebooks for us over the years. So Meadowbrook actually is in a pretty good space in regards to one-to-one devices. Students will utilize the same Chromebook for both at-home and on-campus instruction, meaning they will backpack their Chromebook with them to and from school for the 2 days that they are on campus. We will also place temporary Chromebooks and chargers in the library, and they will be available on campus if needed. Health and safety guidelines. Screening at home is where it begins. If a student has symptoms such as like a cough or shortness of breath, runny nose, a fever of 100 degrees or more, then we ask that families keep their child home. So that will be the first screening. When they arrive at school, we'll have another screening where we'll ask them questions about the symptoms and do a symptoms check, as well as we'll have signage, as I had stated before, sanitation set up for hand washing and cleaning of hands, and we will follow county guidelines and California guidelines. Here's a picture of what it looks like. We currently have small groups on campus. So we have iPads where it's touchless, where we can take temperatures of our students as they enter. All students will be screened prior to entering the Meadowbrook campus, as well as distancing markers and signage prominently placed throughout the school and entrance areas and gates. Face coverings are required for all students, preschool through 12th, and staff, unless they're exempt. Students who refuse to wear a face covering without an exemption will be excluded from on-campus learning and will be required to participate virtually. Students will be allowed to remove their masks to eat or drink during mask breaks designated by staff, and that would include lunchtime, where we would have them separated by 6 feet. They would need to stay stationary while they're eating, and we would have them separated, or we will have them separated. We have hand sanitizing stations throughout the campus with personal protective equipment for staff, as we touched on. We have touchless thermometers as well as the iPads. We have electrostatic cleaners that are being used, as well as UV cleaners. There are wands in each of the classrooms, and our custodial staff is already doing a really good job at keeping clean high touch points. Lunch and meal service. So right now on campus, we're providing a contact-free meal service to protect students and employees. All school meals are free until further notice, which is nice. So we have, again, some children on campus right now, and those lunches are provided and breakfast free. Whoops, I'm sorry. Just cut out. I apologize. You know what? Let's do this. I'm gonna have to, sorry, just had technical difficulty. My StreamYard crashed. But I think I can fix this fairly quickly. Just bear with me one moment, I apologize. I might, just for the sake of time, need to not put it in present mode. Just one moment, please. Thank you for your patience. I apologize. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, now I know how the teachers feel. There we go. Apologize. I know it's kind of small, but I think it'll work for now. There we go. Can you see that okay? Just for now. I won't be able to put it in present mode right now, but hopefully we're okay for right now. All right. So our lunches again are grab and go. Be able to grab those meals, like sit down. We'll keep them distanced, and then they'll be able to eat their food, and then during lunch we will do, to the best of our ability, encourage the 6-foot distancing between students. Symptomatic students who develop a fever of over 100 degrees and or symptoms of illness while at school will be separated from all others immediately in an identified area. So we have an outside area, kind of like a triage spot, and then we will keep them there until a parent or guardian is able to pick them up. A staff member who develops symptoms while at work will be sent home. 6 students and staff are advised to adhere to the CDC guidelines. And we have actually a decision tree that we follow with our staff and students. They are not to return to school or work until they have met the CDC criteria to discontinue their home isolation. Our procedures for handling positive COVID-19 tests on campus. If the school's notified of a student or staff member who tests positive, the administration, myself, I work with the district staff to notify affected parties under the guidance of County Department of Health and Human Services as required. The areas they contacted will be disinfected as quickly as practicable, and the district will adhere to public health guidelines for isolating positive cases or those who have been directly exposed to a positive case. Students who are sent home for testing positive will be, or being exposed to someone who's tested positive, will have access to instructional materials as if they were any other illness-related absence. As well as, don't forget, we would have virtual, be able to access it virtually. All right. So again, I apologize for, I have two screens for one of the monitors having gone down. But I'm going to talk to you about frequently submitted questions. I also want to put up here our URL so that you can ask questions. I'm going to add to our stream our two assistant principals, Kristen Solons and Brent Wozniak. And these are some of the questions that we had received. The first question is switching models throughout the year, and is that our families allowed to switch models? And the challenge with switching models throughout the year is that there may not be space. So right now, based off of preference for families, if you were to choose virtual and then you want to come in to on campus, we might not have the space because we need to adhere to the physical distancing. So it would be based off of availability for space. Brent, do you want to take performing arts?
Certainly. So this kind of covers a few classes, but the ones that most people had been asking about are looking at our band, choir, orchestra, those classes in particular. And those classes tend to be, in a traditional school year, very large, quite a few students, anywhere between 40 and 60 students for band and orchestra. And the larger concern around those classes is the nature of playing instruments, in particular, things like trumpet, clarinet, saxophone, those kinds of things that require students essentially to use equipment that causes significant risk as far as COVID spread. And so the general guidelines that we're following are the same guidelines the district is following according to the County Department of Public Health, which is recommending that at this point, we do not allow students to engage in any activity that allows them to use horns, trumpets, anything that could cause significant airflow and spread. And so at this point, what we are looking at is trying to find ways to get creative with outdoor seating, to allow things to take place that would not cause risk, things like playing instruments that are strings, violins, those things, perhaps doing choir with masks on in an outdoor distance space. But as far as band is concerned, as of right now, it will not look the same as in a traditional school year, even with distancing. And again, that is something that we'll continue to work on, but as it stands, we will continue to operate that program in a primarily virtual environment through Canvas, just again, to maintain health and safety, whether the student is on campus or whether the student is in a virtual setting. That is, again, until we receive any further guidance, but as of right now, that is where it stands.
Okay. And our next question was in regards to PE and locker room. Kristen?
Sure. So right now, we are not going to be using the locker room facilities. Students will not be dressing out for PE. We have formed a district PE committee, and so we're looking at ways that physical education can still happen on campus, but what that will look like. But our most asked question was around dressing out and using the locker rooms. And of course, right now, because of safety, that will not be a part of the physical education program right now. And as we have more information about what it's going to look like at Meadowbrook in terms of the activities and the expectations, we will share that with you when our committee has put everything together and in place.
Thank you. Another frequently asked question was around our ACES program. The question is, will ACES be available before and after school? And we will give priority to those families that have signed up, and we will try to accommodate as many students as possible in the before and after school program. We are counting on implementing that, and it's going to be based off of space availability and staffing. But there will be an ACES program. Next question is in regards to, oh, and also just to add to that, on that asynchronous day, we won't have on-campus ACES, but we will have a virtual ACES available for students to engage in. Next question was in regards to lunch. Brent, I think you can probably answer, or explain what it looks like now and what we're anticipating it looking like upon return.
Sure. And as Principal Brownlee had mentioned earlier, the lunch as of right now is being provided to students who request it or who need it as a grab-and-go bagged lunch. There is no exchange of cash, there's nothing sold, and there's no requirement for students to pay for those meals. And the way that we've been able to manage that is we have placed a significant number of distancing markers in our covered lunch area so that students, when they're lining up to receive their meals, can still maintain physical distancing to the extent that's necessary. When students receive their meals, or if students bring their own lunch, the rules that we put in place, again, for health and safety, is we've put significant effort into distancing our lunch tables and to only allowing 2 students sitting corner to corner at those tables while they're eating, because that is a time and space where they are permitted, obviously, to take their masks off while they enjoy their meal, while they chat with their friends. But at the same time, the rule we have in place is that students must be stationary and in a seated individual space while they're eating their meal, whether that's going to be at the larger return somewhere in our grass area quad, somewhere in our covered lunch area. We just don't want students up and mobile with their masks off. And so again, the 6-foot distancing is still a requirement, but that is the time of the day that they can have their mask off. Once they're done with their meal, we do ask that students, again, put their masks back on. And again, that's their social time. They're allowed to talk to their friends. We have activities set up during lunch, and we have had significant positive feedback from our students that is probably one of their favorite times of the day, because again, for a significant number of students in our small group return, that's the first time they've been with their colleagues or their peers in quite a few months. And so we anticipate with the larger return in our AB model that is something that will be met positively by our students, but it takes a lot of proactive supervision by our noon duties. Our administrative team is out there. Some of our staff go out there during lunch just to talk to kids and again, help reinforce and remind students of the distancing requirements. But so far, so good. It's been a very safe and healthy time for our students, and I believe they've enjoyed it very much. And we're looking forward to keeping it that way as we come back with a larger return.
Perfect. Thank you. And the last question that seemed to come up a lot was, how many COVID cases will close the school? And it's 5%. If 5% of our classes are closed, or positive cases, 5% of our population, then we would close the school. For the district, it would be if 25% or more of schools are closed, then the district would close. And with that, we can shift gears to questions and answers. Did we have any other questions come in?
Yeah. One that we've seen quite a bit that we might want to just to address is around teachers who are teaching virtually versus the teachers who are teaching on campus. Will that be made known to parents as to who will be teaching on campus and who will be teaching virtually?
Perfect. Thank you. So right now, our personnel services, they're still working with teachers and staff to figure out whether or not the accommodations need to be made for teachers to be able to teach virtually. So it hasn't been finalized. So what I would say is, if you are comfortable with the situation as far as being on campus, and you want your child to be on campus, then you would look at it that way for the safety guidelines. Because whether your child is in person or virtual, they will have access to the teachers that they currently have. And that was the main reason for us to go with the concurrent model, was because we would not have to change teachers and disrupt our students' schedules as well as our teachers' schedules. So again, regardless of if they're on campus or virtual, they will still have access to all their current teachers. If they are on campus and the teacher is teaching virtually, while your student is on campus, there will still be supervision. And again, students will still have access to their teacher. Next question.
Yeah, there was a couple of questions actually about, just curious about the rationale for the asynchronous day on Fridays as to why that exists.
Yes. So the asynchronous day is to help the quality education. So for teachers to be able to work together collaboratively to plan, to make sure there's rich learning provided for our students. And so it's not a day off, so to speak, for our teachers and staff. It's an opportunity for professional development to take place, for their professional learning communities, for them to work together and again provide rich rich lessons for our students.
We had a question about if students can bike to school and if there's any specific guidelines or rules around biking to school.
It's a good question. I haven't thought about that.
We might need to get back to them.
They can definitely walk to school, right? I know at the elementary school, they're not able to. As far as biking to school, though, I mean, my only concern is that the bike rack is not a very big bike rack. And, my other wondering is when they come to school on skateboards and scooters, we used to pre-COVID, they would pile it in the holding bin, and we can't have that. So I'll be honest with you, this wasn't something that I had thought about, and so I'm gonna need more time to see if we can come up with a plan, because I understand students are gonna need to bike to school. I'm just not sure what that's going to look like yet. So I need to come up with a plan. So we'll take note of that because that's definitely something we're going to need to address.
There were several questions that were from parents asking as to whether or not they might be able to have a choice in which of the cohorts their student would attend, A or B, if the A cohort days cause a scheduling hardship, or vice versa.
Yeah, and I understand that. Especially, my own two boys are in a A/B cohort for their school, so my boys are in a Thursday Friday cohort. The challenge that we would run into as far as with a secondary school is we need to make sure that we don't have too many students in any one class. And so when we start arranging which cohort students are in or giving preference, it might not be possible because it could throw the number off for, like, let's just say cohort A. Yeah, let's say I have Mr. Bass, and in cohort A he has 15, and in cohort B has 15, and now I'm shifting students over. I could cause a major imbalance. So we would look at that as a case by case basis, but on a wide scale, we may not be able to accommodate requests. So
we have a question about why there's a 20-minute break after the first 2 periods versus the 5-minute passing. So that nutrition break that we had talked about, why it's longer.
Yeah, so and really this is the first year that we had that break or nutrition. And when we actually first implemented it, it was because we wanted to give students a break from screen time. For our virtual students, we wanted to give them a break from having looked at the screen for long periods of time. So also students that are on campus, it could be an opportunity for them to have a snack because we don't have an early lunch and a later lunch. It's just going to be one lunch. So twofold that it would be beneficial for our students. One, for our virtual, when they're learning virtually, they get a break from the screen. Two, students that are on campus, they have an opportunity as well to grab a snack and have a mask break.
The next question is in relation to transportation. This parent wants to know if and when the bus schedule is going to be modified, when parents will be made aware, and whether or not the school start times will change to accommodate that bus schedule, whether it'll be an earlier drop-off or a later pickup.
So right now, our transportation at the district office, they're working with principals to try and figure out. It's a very complicated 3-tiered system. So our buses are not just servicing Meadowbrook or middle schools, they're servicing elementary school, middle schools, high schools, as well as some of our special education students. So because it's so complex, we're trying to find a solution to where we don't have to drastically change our times from what we currently have. So to answer the question, as soon as we figure out if there's, if we can be accommodated with our bus schedule, we will let parents know. Because at the same time, we don't want to have these massive supervision gaps between when school ends and begins and when buses are picking up, and as well as bringing kids to school, because that's just not helpful for families. So they're working really hard right now, and they're looking at the transportation schedule, and they're trying to accommodate schools. And so I should know before the break what we're going to be able to do, and I will communicate that with our families. Absolutely.
There's a question about can we still submit our preference or change our existing selection? And that's in reference to changing from on-campus to virtual or virtual to on-campus, or if that time is already passed.
If you're going to do it, do it like now, because we're beginning to schedule students and we're trying to figure out our cohorts. So, but if after tonight you need to change your preference, please email me so that we can try and accommodate you, as the form itself is closed.
I can answer this one if you'd like, Principal Brownlee, but the question is whether or not a child can bring their own device to school as opposed to using the school-issued Chromebook, if that's the preference.
Okay, go ahead.
And the answer to that right now, we've had this conversation. The answer to that right now is that we would ask that the student use the school-issued Chromebook for a couple of reasons. The primary reason is because our district has preloaded each device with all of our shortcuts and apps that our students use, including Canvas. And that's going to make it significantly easier for the student to engage in the learning program. The second part to that is that when it comes to Wi-Fi connectivity and security settings, it will become extremely difficult if we try to allow for a BYOD environment. That's a bring your own device environment that includes cell phones, personal laptops, or tablets. We just don't have the capacity, especially with an online and a virtual program running concurrently with a live and in-person program, to really be able to support students that may bring their own devices to school. So again, if students are bringing supplementary electronics or devices that might help them with the learning program, that would need to be in addition to the use of the school-issued Chromebook. It would not be in lieu of that device.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question here. Given the current COVID status, is 1/19 still a target date for our on-campus return? And do we anticipate any delay in that opening date?
So as of right now, today, we are still moving ahead with the January 19th reopening date. Schools that are already open, since we have small groups on campus, were considered already open. So as of right now, we are shooting for that target date. If health and safety, or if there's a change in requirements, and for some reason we're not able to open, then that would come down from our superintendent as well as the board. So, but as of right now, we are able to open January 19th, 2021. And we're moving forward as if that's what's going to happen.
The next question is when the gates open. So essentially, when students arrive, when will they be permitted to enter campus?
Okay. So the thing with that is we have to see what our bell schedule is going to be. So if we have to shift back to the 7:40 start time, the gate would open earlier than if we have the 8 o'clock. So I don't have an answer for that right now, just because we need to dial in our bell schedule, and then we will work with, and again, that's contingent upon transportation. So we will have an answer. We just don't have it quite just yet.
This question is about eighth period, and I can answer it if you'd like. The question is, it looks like eighth period will only be taught twice a week. And the reason being is that currently eighth period is being taught 4 days a week because the periods are shorter. They're 40, 45 minutes. But now, since we'll be able to do the full 80-minute block, eighth period will only be twice a week, like the rest of the periods. So that's something to note.
Perfect.
The next question, I believe we addressed in part in the presentation, but the question is, how many teachers approximately do we expect to be teaching virtually versus on-site?
So we're still, teachers and staff are still going through our personnel services process. And so I don't know how many teachers will be teaching virtually versus in person. So we don't have that yet. It could be up to, I think, 15 teachers virtually, approximately.
Okay, another question that has come up is about students. Are students allowed to wait at school for an hour after the day ends if a parent can't pick them up immediately? So going back to that supervision ACES piece.
So my suggestion would be, if we have room in our ACES program, that they're in a supervised ACES program after school, because what we don't want is students hanging out outside, intermingling for an hour unsupervised.
The next question is in regards to distributing devices in Chromebooks, or when students do return, how and when will they receive a new device if they do not already have one? And I can actually answer that. The way we've been doing it.
I envision.
Oh, we were probably going to say the same thing. Essentially, that when students do return, there's two ways we've been doing this. In one of our small groups, we had the devices literally waiting for handout when students arrived. As they walked through the front gate, we passed them out and gave the students a checkout form. In this case, more than likely what we would do is we've actually got a separate checkout window set up at our library, and that'll be our central housing space for all of our Chromebook devices. And so, again, class by class, as students return, we would probably have a scheduled time of the day where students would stop by our library to have their device checked out to them. And it would be a device checked out to each individual student, so it will be theirs as if it was their textbook to take to and from the school each day. But that is something that would be centrally controlled at the school. It will not be like last spring, if you were with us last spring, or maybe at your elementary site, where we had to do a drive up and pick up of the Chromebook distribution. That will not be necessary when your student does return. If your student is going to remain virtual, we may be able to set something up like that, where there is a day or a designated set of times where your student would be able to report to campus to pick up their device if they do not, again, already have one and they need one, and they're remaining virtual.
And we can further explore it. The only reason why I'm thinking that is because if I am not getting my Chromebook until third period, how am I going to access my learning prior? So what we might need to do, I'm not sure, but we might need to use one of those Fridays before we open to do a Chromebook distribution for those that are returning on campus. But I think we would need to explore it further because Mr. Wozniak, your idea might work, but I think we're going to need to explore it a little further.
Okay, this is a great question to clarify the concurrent model. So the question is, if a student comes to school physically, they will still have to log in through a Chromebook and participate and follow the teacher virtually rather than in person. So if you want, Principal Brownlee, I can kind of tackle this one and clarify a little bit.
Sure.
So if I come to school and I'm sitting in my first period class and my teacher is present, then I will not log into Zoom, but I will engage with my teacher who's in front of me teaching. I may have my Chromebook open because I may need to access a lesson on Canvas, or I may need to put in my headphones and watch a video that the teacher shared with me. So if my teacher's currently in front of me, then I wouldn't log into Zoom to access my teacher, but rather that teacher would be in front of me live. And this kind of addresses another question that somebody had asked about if students are in class with a teacher who is virtual, how will that work? And so if I go to my second period class, well, it wouldn't be second, but I go to my third period class that day and my third period teacher is virtual, then I will go to another location with other students who also have that teacher, and possibly students who teacher is also virtual for that period. And then we will all access our teacher via Zoom. So we'll have our earbuds in and we will be connecting with that teacher for that period over Zoom. Hopefully I clearly stated all of that and answered your question.
Well, and then we've got about 6 more minutes before we'll be done.
One of the questions down here is actually in regards to what we have on campus now as far as small groups, approximately how many students we have on campus and what student groups we have on campus.
All right, you want to take that question, Brent?
Sure thing. Yeah, the first group of students that we brought back as far back as October is one of our special education groups, our SDC classes, our special day class students in our BASIS program. Very small, and those cohorts of students are essentially grouped throughout the school day, and so that made the most sense for us because those teachers we were going to have on site, and those teachers have still been teaching concurrently with some virtual students as well. That consists of just about 30 students or so in that small group. And then after that group in early November, we brought back, again, just based on different levels of need, a group of about 59 students that we invited back to our campus. And of that, I believe, Ms. Sullins, correct me if I'm wrong, about 40 to 45 of those students that we actually have on site at this point, consisting again of different subgroups. So all said, we have upwards of, on any given day, anywhere between 70 and 80 students on campus at this time. Very, very small and very intentional to bring back those small groups. And again, this was based on very particular need for those groups of students, but also based on staffing and availability of staffing. We would have loved to have brought back potentially more students, but again, we had to work within the resources and personnel that we had available to us, and it's provided a really, really nice opportunity for us to pilot some of the systems that we're going to need to operate really in full swing, both regard to health and safety and regard to logistics for when the larger return occurs.
Thank you.
And then there's a question about the max number of students per room. And that really depends on which room we're talking about. Some of our classrooms, our science labs are a lot bigger, our art rooms a lot bigger. So really what we're doing right now, when we're in the process of doing, is walking the campus and really taking a look at each indoor space that we have and looking at how we can set it up in a way that is socially distanced and it's safe for everybody. And then we'll make the connection between which groups of students will go into each room, depending on the max number, depending on, you know, how many students are in each period. But it really just depends on which classroom we're talking about. But we are keeping in mind social distancing. We're keeping in mind the space, the number of students per room, to make sure that everybody is safe and it's a good environment for everybody to be in.
And on average, Mr. Wozniak, how many do we have?
As far as students per room?
Yeah, just on average, though, because
on average right now, I would say the largest group that I have in a classroom is about 13 to 14 students for the small groups. But on average, I would say it will rest anywhere between 11 to 15, to be honest with you, 15 being on the high end. And in some cases, based on some of the initial numbers we see, it might be quite a bit lower than that. So a regular standard classroom, we're probably going to be able to get about 15 students, and we won't want to exceed that number, just again to very, very conservatively make sure that we maintain the physical distancing of at least 6 feet.
Right. And then, as Ms. Sullins was saying, we do have some rooms that are larger where we could fit more than the 15 in. So I just want to get an average as well out there. So thank you both. We have time for maybe 2 more questions.
There was a question here with regard to mask breaks, not just at necessarily break or lunch, but as necessary throughout the school day, how that will occur.
You want to take that one?
Sure. The way that we've been handling it now, and this has been actually working very nicely, and the students, I will say, have been very, very responsible with the way that we've been asking them to participate in this. We've left this to the purview of a teacher, essentially to say, very similar to a student who in the regular school year would have said, I want to grab a drink of water or use the restroom. What we've been asking teachers to do is to monitor this so that there are maybe at the most 1, if not 2 students that might be excused at any one time to just step again right outside the classroom, distance, take their mask off, assuming that there's nobody around them and they are outdoors, just for quite literally a moment or 2, and then to re-enter the room. And that is only periodic and as needed, and it is not being abused. Our students, again, I'm very proud of the fact that they are asking permission only as necessary to be able to step out and take that as needed. And that is something that we can do. Because Meadowbrook is an outdoor campus, we have the benefit of not having necessarily so many enclosed spaces that don't have access to the outdoors. We are encouraging all of our teachers and actually asking them to keep their doors open, aside from inclement weather, during the school day, just to increase airflow. So that quite significantly helps. But at the same time, yes, students will be permitted as needed to take a quick step outside for a mask break, but they will not be wandering around campus. They'll be right outside the classroom door. And again, just for a moment or 2. We're not talking anything as far as extended periods of time.
And maybe one last one.
Yeah, this one is if a student chooses right now in person, but then as the year continues, is it easy for them to then switch back to virtual if that's what the family decides?
we would more likely be able to accommodate the virtual, going from in-person to virtual rather than virtual to in-person. And again, it's, you know, we're scheduling kids, and so we're hoping that there's not going to be too many changes because we would have to process that. So, but I do understand that it's a fluid situation where numbers could go beyond where somebody is comfortable. So we will do our best to accommodate our families and do what's right by our families and our community and our students. So, yeah. All right. I think that's right at an hour. It's 7 o'clock. If there are there, did we miss a lot or just a few? Maybe we can send an FAQ out with answers to the questions that we did not get to. Does it look pretty reasonable? Did we get most of the questions answered?
We did. There are, I would say, Ms. Stallings, correct me, but just a few, literally a handful that we can address, like you said, in writing.
Okay.
But we covered quite a bit, and it looks like we've addressed most of the ones that were submitted.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you everybody so much, and we will probably have maybe one more of these prior, if we can, prior to the opening, but we will have this on YouTube, so it's going to be available for you to go back and watch again. And we look forward to seeing you January 19th, whether it's on campus or virtually. And we're just so glad to be together as Mustangs. And thank you so much, all of our parents and community and students and staff, for staying together through times that are turbulent. So thank you so much, and I hope everybody has an excellent evening. Thank you.